Hey, happy Friday. Happy Digest Day. Megan Schultz here, host of Cream City Dreams podcast on Wednesdays and these small bite-sized Cream City Digests on Fridays. I hope you're digging this season of joy, listening to all the women who are bringing joy to our city. And you know what's bringing me joy is this detox I'm on, this social media detox in the month of June. And I thought that maybe sharing my experience with this might inspire some of you to pay attention to your attention, where you put it, who you give it to, and really being more intentional about living in the present. And isn't that really what we're all just trying to do? Hey, happy Friday, August 1st. How have we gone through June and July already? But here we are. And another Friday Digest where I am lucky enough to talk with Thekla. She is back, my friend and clinical psychologist who specializes in addiction and mental health and self-compassion and mindfulness. And we're talking today about dipping back in. It has been a lovely summer for me without social media. If you've been following along on these Friday episodes, you know that already. But what happens when I need to dip back in? Or if I want to dip back in, which I'm not really sure I do. But if and when that time comes, how do I do that safely? How do I do that with boundaries and protecting myself so I don't fall back into the trap of the doom scroll? That's what we're talking about today. So if you've been following along, maybe on your own social media detox or something of the sort, this will be an interesting episode. Hopefully full of tips and tactics that you can take back and try yourself. So I will dive right in with Thekla. Welcome back, listeners. Happy Friday. Another Cream City Digest. And I'm so happy that my friend and clinical psychologist, Thekla Brumder Ross, could join us again because I have some practical questions. We got existential. We talked all about our summers and how we're doing off screens and what it means and how we find our validation. But now summer is, well, it's not really coming to a close, but oh my gosh, summer is going by fast. And I have some questions for you, Thekla. Are you ready for me?
I'm ready for you. I'm ready for it. Let's do it, hon.
I need some practical tips, and I'm wondering if our listeners do too. And I want to give you just a minute for the listeners who might not have heard the last couple weeks, to introduce yourself and to just talk about this book that you are writing, like your elevator pitch for your book, because it really fits in well with the questions I have today about balancing social media.
Yeah, I'm writing a book about balance. How do you live in balance with your technology? Period. That's my pitch. Have you ever thought about it? Have you ever tried it? Have you ever looked into it? Have you talked to your family, your friends, your community about it? Are you pointing the finger at your kids, but you've never looked at yourself? It's all about technology's never going away. AI is here to stay. Social is here. So how do you live with it in a way that's healthy and in balance and serves you and your community? And how do you get curious about that? And how do you do that? You know, it's a practical book. It helps people walk through it in a day-to-day exercise. You can pick up, read a page, and you can put it down and come back to it later. It's a weekly reader. And so it's helping people really practice the principles. Because if you've been listening to these podcasts, we've talked about how behavior change happens with knowledge, skills, and confidence. And you're not born innately with confidence. That comes through practice. So it's all about practicing, reconnecting with ourselves, each other, and the planet.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for writing this. I hope it comes out sooner than later because I know so many of us need this. And I'm curious. So I have been off socials all summer. By the time this comes out, I expect I will still be off them because it's been such a joyful experience and such a spacious experience. It just has opened up so much time. And not that I don't still need help, and not that I haven't found replacements of other tech things. You know, I've read usually my emails. I have so many Substack newsletters that I'm subscribed to, and it's usually delete. Ooh, save, and I'll go back to that, which of course I never do. But I've been reading those a lot more. So I've been filling the time this summer with other things. So there's still more for me to work on. But as we inch back toward the start of school, I'm thinking about some of the things that I get from socials that it's been okay to be away from over the summer because they're not as active. Like I'm thinking about our school and how we communicate the parent group on Facebook, and that school group, and how dates and pictures and events are posted. And just, there's been a few times I've missed, like I've wanted to give away some stuff on the Buy Nothing site, and that could have been helpful, or find something, ask for something on our local Buy Nothing site. And that could have been helpful to hop back on, and I didn't, which has been fine. Not huge deals, but just things that make me think, maybe I should go back on. Or like I've got a couple, for example, in the season of Cream City Dreams, right before I left, I had a couple posts of who was coming because I knew I was going to be off the socials. And I have a couple more guests that didn't get the promotion right before I left. So if you were to look on Instagram now, you wouldn't see them on there. And like, to be fair to all my guests, should I be on there posting? I don't, all these questions of like, am I going to eventually really have to go back? I approached it with an all or nothing. Because I said at the beginning, I feel like I'm an all or nothing kind of person, but if I have to inch back to it, how do we do that? And so I thought today we could just talk about that and get your expertise on that, particularly with your experience and your professional work in addiction.
Yeah. You asked such a good question. So for folks who didn't hear the episode where we talked about sustainable behavior change, like go back and listen to it, because we talk about why the all or nothing is different from the small bite-sized sustainable changes. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into that today when I offer some practical tips and tools. Megan, as you're thinking about slowly emphasize, did you see how I changed my tone? I said slowly reintegrating back. And yes, we can't always live without it completely. And some people have to live that way, right? So typical, if you look at the definition of a use disorder. Now, there isn't, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual has gaming disorder currently, but it's still currently being evolved what digital addiction looks like. However, if I'm being honest, all of us meet criteria for it because of how pervasive it is in our lives and our culture. And so the question really becomes, can you live with it safely? Can you live in balance with it? And if you can't, then maybe you have to be off completely. And some people have to be completely abstinent from unhealthy substances, and some people can. So that's an exploration process, and we can talk about it. For you specifically, in this example, you've gone off it. You've been able to see where it brings joy, where it's challenge. You've asked a lot of existential questions. You didn't have some of the withdrawal we talked about in some of the previous episodes that we thought we anticipated you would have. So just note that. So you weren't maybe as addicted to it as you thought. And you were able to actually go off it with a lot of ease and a lot of clarity. So let's note those successes. Before we jump into the practical tips, I want to ask you, and I ask the audience to think about this. Have you ever cut back or stopped or reduced or had more balance around another behavior in your life? And I want to know what was successful and what was challenging.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of this year, my husband and I, maybe it was even 2 years ago that this sort of was planted, but we did the typical dry January, kind of challenged each other to that. We were having maybe a glass of wine with dinner. It's not like we were drinking in excess, but enough to get through a couple bottles a week, maybe. And we just did a dry January. And in February, we felt so good that we were like, nah, do you want a glass of wine? Nah. No, even though it was February 1st and we could, in theory, because we told ourselves we were just going to do it for the month of January. And it's not actually that we stopped, because we'll still have, a glass of wine here or there, or if we're out for dinner, if we're on a date night, we might have a gin drink, but we just don't have that desire is not there as much. And the few times that the desire has been there and I've maybe had one too many glasses of wine, the next day it's like, ooh, I'm not sure that was worth it anymore. And I feel like that's changed as I've gotten older. I think I could have handled that in my 20s and hopped right back up and gone to work, which I did, many a day. But now I think that I'm nearing 50 and my body doesn't reset as quickly as it used to. I have to really, really weigh is this, while I'm in it, is this worth it? Is it going to be worth it if tomorrow I feel like this? So, yeah, I feel like, I've been able to manage that.
Beautiful example. First of all, thank you for sharing that with us, and great example around cutting back, looking at how you feel before and after. How does it feel with less in your life? For folks who are interested, there's an incredible resource called the Core Resource on Alcohol. It's out on NIAA's website, and it's about how to cut back. It's directed toward healthcare workers, but they're tips for cutting back, and there's all sorts of resources if people are interested on that. The Surgeon General came out with a report on the impacts of alcohol use this year, and so it's a great example of getting curious and exploring our behavior and what is healthy and unhealthy, because there are standards and guidelines for that, and they do exist. There aren't standards and guidelines yet for social media and for our phones. And so I think you and I can go on this little journey of a couple of practical tips and tools as you think about testing, bringing it back into your life, if you choose to do that or not. Because let me just say, I heard you say, I'm still off. I'm planning to be off the rest of the summer. I'm thinking about going back for school. But if you choose to go back or not. So should we play with a few of them and see how they feel? Let's see how they land. I always like to see how they land, because one tip that may work for me may not work for you, and that's okay. I tell people that all the time. That's okay. We're just playing with them and see what works for you. So how do you feel about scheduling your social media time?
Yes. How do I feel? I think I could do that. I am a schedule follower. I like rules. I like to follow things. So I think I could do that. The fear would be what happens if, let's say, I give myself an hour or half an hour to do podcast promotion or whatever. What happens if at minute 29, I'm like, oh, I'm not done yet? And we talked about this on one of the episodes in May of like, I'm sitting here, I'm just going to give myself 15 more minutes. Okay, just 15 more, and all of a sudden it's 2 hours later. So do I trust myself to be regulate myself? I don't know yet. That might
be. Good question. Do you trust yourself to regulate yourself? Remind yourself, listeners, go back to the episode about the brain where I talk about the dopaminergic system and what it's doing to your brain. So now you know, because of that, you know that it's hijacking your brain. You know that you're getting a flood of dopamine. So you already know that. Now you have conscious awareness of that. So at that 30 minutes, check in with yourself. Am I continuing to do things for Cream City Dreams that I need to do to complete? I haven't gotten that upload of the last guest that I have. I haven't been able to do that yet. Or am I scrolling? Right? Just pause and ask yourself a question. Just check in with yourself, right? It's the putting your hand on top of your phone as opposed to gripping it that we talked about in the previous episode. What am I still engaging in work-related behaviors on social media that I need to accomplish those tasks? Or am I off down the road on some other tangent, which we all know we've gotten to, myself included, on LinkedIn, that has brought me, 7 degrees of separation somewhere else.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So scheduling is an option. Yes, scheduling is an option. We talked about starting slow and setting boundaries. I would encourage you to say those because your family has been involved in your detox process. I would encourage you to set boundaries and say them out loud to your family members so that you can have some accountability. Accountability buddies are really helpful. You can say them to me. You can say them to your friends. You can talk about them. And again, they're not there to be rigid. They're there to support you. Boundaries support connection. Bad or less diffuse boundaries take away from connection. So think about them enhancing your connection with your family members. Like, hey, I'm going to be doing social in the evenings at this time or what have you. And then it's protected time.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and if listeners heard my daughter Zoe, they heard her call me out on, what is she doing over there on her phone? Why? And yeah, there's nothing more triggering than one of my children saying, Mom, get off your phone.
Totally. Let me just validate the daughter episode is fantastic. Listen, go do it. Listen to the digest. She's amazing and her feedback is amazing. And to all the parents out there, do it. Dictate what you're doing on your phone. Tell your kids what you're going to do on your phone. You'll want to know what they're doing on their phone when they're an adolescent. So I mean, ideally, you don't give them a phone until as late as possible, but you'll want to know what they're doing. So tell them what you're doing. And if it's work related, say then I need to go into my work related space and accomplish some work related tasks. Because it's all flowing now, everything, because it's a camera and it's a phone and it's an email machine. Like you got to get clear with your kids about what you're doing. Okay, the next one I would say is continue to keep reflecting on your goals. So whether that's in conversation in community, like you've been doing with some other Cream City Dreams listeners and myself, whether that's journaling, whether that's with a coach, whatever it is, whether it's just by yourself, just continue to keep reflecting on what is serving me in this relationship and what maybe is not. And because you've already done the detox, now you have some clarity. You have some clarity about that. So empower yourself with that. Practice the mindfulness. So before you go on, pause, like we talked about with putting your hand on top of your phone and asking, what am I intending to do? Pause before you go on and you say, and I do this, I've been practicing this. I'll okay, I'm bringing up my LinkedIn tab. Okay, it is 10:59. I'm bringing up my LinkedIn tab. I'm going to engage on it now. And I'm setting my timer and right. So you're being very mindful and intentional about what is the exact task you're going to do on the social.
Yes, I love that.
I think you're already doing this in your practice, which is engage more offline as much as possible as you can, because you've been noticing that even going off social, you've still been on your phone. This is the same for me. So because I'm not on social, it doesn't mean that I'm like, oh, in this tech-free world. No, I have to constantly be thinking about my balance between offline and online. I will say there's a recent study that came out this year, 2025, and I'll send it to you so you can put it in the show notes, about how having Wi-Fi free zones enhances psychological well-being. And for folks who are listening, there are such things as detox hotels where you can go to hotels that don't have Wi-Fi. Guess what? They're ridiculously expensive. We're talking like helicopter landing pads where you have to go to these places that don't have Wi-Fi. If you want me to hook you up with a Wi-Fi free zone, I'll hook you up. And the last thing I'll just say is let's go back on the pod and constantly reassess with each other. Let's just get real with our listeners and constantly be reassessing, checking back in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that has been so helpful, honestly, this summer, knowing that you're doing this with me, knowing that my mom out there in California is doing this with me, some of her friends, just knowing that there are people out there who are really being intentional about this and that it's hard and that it's hard for all of us. It really has sucked us in, since whatever, 2008, 2010, when these became ubiquitous. It's a way of life. And so to separate from that feels,
Yeah, it's big. It's a cultural change. I mean, similar to the alcohol conversation, sometimes we just automatically go out for dinner and you order your alcohol, or you come home and it's after work. And are you just doing that out of default because that's culturally what you've been acculturated to do? Or is that really what you want or need in this moment? It's the quintessential self-compassion question. What do I need in this moment? Not what do I want? What do I need?
Oh, this is making me feel better. Making me feel like, I can dip my toe in. There's also a little bit of and maybe you can speak to this too, but a little bit of the judgment factor, not in other people. I'm talking about the self-judgment of, oh, I've been off social medias all summer. What a great thing. And I can do it. Look at me. I can do it. And then if I dip my toe back in, like, you just let yourself down. You had been doing so well, and so figuring out how to let that go and to find the balance of you want to just double check to make sure you don't have to turn in a permission slip for school. It's fine to go to Facebook to find that out, like that is okay. You are not a bad person. I don't know if it's a self-righteous thing of the being off socials because it's so hard to do. And so once you do it, I feel like, okay, I've done it and I can't go back. But
yeah, social media is a tool. The technology, the phone, everything is a tool, but we don't, the head of Dr. Michael Rich, the head of the Digital Wellness Lab at Children's Hospital in Boston, says it's like a chainsaw, right? It's an incredibly powerful tool, can do a lot of good and can do a lot of harm. We don't use a chainsaw for everything. For the things we use a chainsaw for, it's really effective and it's good. And then you turn the chainsaw off. When was the last time we turned off of our phones because we didn't need it? We're using this tool for everything. It's a tool. But when you need to use it, it's very helpful and it's useful. And then recognizing when you don't need to use it and it's not a needed tool, right? I often find myself like, do I need to be pulling out my phone to take a picture of this thing? Or can I just take a picture in my mind and enjoy the moment and savor the moment? And usually the answer ends up being the latter, right?
Yes.
So it's a tool and using it mindfully. I'm just going to also say back to your point about the shame and the guilt. So shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad. You are not a bad person for going on and needing to communicate with a teacher or the principal through the Facebook chain, what have you. That doesn't make you a bad person. And the guilt around it is around this, our culture, which we talked about in the detox episode, this like push in our culture to either do all or nothing, right? And that's how we've talked about it, even just in harm reduction in general. That is a difficult conversation. Like, how do you meet yourself where you are and reduce harm in your life to create and enhance your lifestyle and your well-being? And to really ask, is you going on once to message your teacher, is that harming your well-being? It's for you to answer, not me, but likely not. Likely not. So it's reducing harm, it's finding balance. And if you can't do that, listeners, if you aren't able to reduce harm and you can't find balance because it takes over your brain and overwhelms you, then it's a clear sign that maybe none is better for you.
And that's for each individual person to figure out.
100%. That's for each individual person to figure out and their relationship to it. If folks are curious about the criteria around gaming disorder and other technological addictions, those we can also put in the show notes, a link to those. But the actual definition of addiction to technology is still not in the diagnostic and statistical manual.
Well, this has been so helpful. I think, reality means that, as we've been saying, it's with us. We can't get away from all of the things that invade our culture in terms of tech and social media and AI. So living in balance is helpful. And this, just taking these small steps, as you were saying, is, I think, the way to approach.
Yeah. Small, sustainable steps is how we change behavior over time, right? It's how many of us, we talked about this on a previous episode, have gone to the gym and gone every day in January, and we've done all of the extremes and we've gone to 2 classes a day. And then by middle February, that's not sustainable. So really be thinking about the smallest step you could take. I want you to have success. I want you to be able to cheerlead yourself because it was such a small step that you were able to have success, and you can pat yourself on the back for finding success in that tiny little behavior change. And once you do that, then you can move on to another step and a bigger step. And so that's all the little pieces that add up to this sort of larger behavior change. And I'd love to check back in with you, Megan, and myself, honestly.
Yes. Yep.
On this in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, as we continue to evolve in our relationship with our technology.
Absolutely. I am so game. I'm so game because, I think the accountability part of it, the having a person to talk about this with, has been so helpful. So listeners, if you are out there doing this with us, I hope you have a person. I hope you have your Thekla that you can touch base with and bounce ideas off of and congratulate. Supporting each other and being each other's cheerleaders in this journey is helpful. And if you don't have one, send me a voice memo. I'd be happy to be your person. I'm pretty sure Thekla probably would too. We're here for you. And it's just been so fun to experience this alongside you, Thekla, and alongside the listeners who are shouting out and letting me know that you're with us. So thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for creating space. Healing happens in community, y'all. So thank you, Megan, for creating the community and making the invitation so that we could all be here to do it together.
And summer's not over yet, so we're still in it. So every Friday we'll still be here. Cream City Digest. If you are enjoying this series, if you're enjoying this podcast, I would love it if you would leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That helps get listeners, especially when I'm not on the socials to promote it. So anything you can do to like and share these episodes with your friends, that would help me so much. We'll be back next week. And until then, Milwaukee,
keep on dreaming.